Why are you doing this? To help people where they're at in their business, right?
Not really. We can literally
Okay,
we can
so
literally
just
yeah, we can literally kick off that way though. This can literally be the start of the episode. Like I said, it'll be super, super casual. So welcome everybody. Eric the Painter podcast, hosted by Eric and my co-host Corinne, who's neither of us are really painters, but you'll hear more about that later. But yeah, what the heck is this podcast? Corinne, to your point, like what the heck is this podcast? What is the intention? Is it to help other people? It's not that I'm not here to help other people. Like I'm sure this podcast will help other people, and I hope it does for sure. But really, I don't know. I think it'd be fun. I know as I was telling you the other day, like I know we should have started a podcast like a long time ago for the marketing company because it'll like bring in revenue and all that sort of stuff. Like I'm well aware, but I never did because it's just like I wasn't excited about it. I was like, oh, it would feel like a drag. It would feel like something on my to-do list that like I had to do. And there was nothing exciting about it. And when we kind of got this idea for Eric the Painter to do it a little differently, I was like, that'd be fun. And because it's fun and I'm excited, it won't be a drag. It'll be something I want to do. And we're here on a Saturday morning recording this just because it'll be fun. So that's kind of where it started, you know, just have fun with it. The intention is obviously that it helps a lot of people too. I think also selfishly, the intention is to document this, you know, it'd be so cool to be able to go back on the marketing company and like see like where I was at, what I was thinking in like month 3 of the marketing company. Right. And I've documented good parts of the painting company along the way, but not in like a long form, like sit down style like this. So it'll be really cool in like 2 years to look back and be like, this is where the painting company was at. And like, this is what we were thinking and all that sort of stuff, you know? So.
yeah, it is an evolution and quite a journey, no matter like what business somebody is running.
It most certainly has been.
Starting out, the things you learn, what works, what doesn't.
Oh my gosh, yes.
Lessons.
It most certainly has been. It's been a journey so far. We've learned a lot. It's been a roller coaster. What, we're month 10 right now, or maybe going, month 10, February, March, April. We started the painting business like technically like last week of March. I just call it April. Last week of March, beginning of April. So yeah, we're on month 10. That'll be crazy, dude. In 2 months, it'll be a year since we started this thing. That's crazy.
Get a cake.
So yeah, we should. But here we can just we'll roll this in. We'll just do like both episodes at once, right? So we'll just go like, what is this podcast, right into like everything that's happened up until this point in the painting business. We'll catch everybody up to speed with where we're at so far. But the painting business so far, so the intention of this podcast, like you were saying, Corinne, like to help people, yes, to do all that sort of stuff, but also they said to document everything. But I want this to be a little different. So there's, just for everybody listening, right, like there will be a bunch of episodes like this that are just solo, me and Corinne. If you're wondering like, who's this Corinne girl, she helps a lot in the painting business. So she handles all of our recruiting in terms of bringing in painters, project managers, salespeople, etc. She also does what we call project coordination. So like all of our scheduling, coordinating with clients, all that sort of stuff. Eventually that'll be another role, but it's a minimal responsibility right now that she's just spearheaded. She's also helped with some sales training for our sales team and everything. I mean, she's really just touched a lot of the areas of the business. And she worked on the marketing side with us for a while previously. So she's got a really, really unique perspective and just the perfect person to co-host this thing. So, but there will be a lot of solo episodes like this, just going over like, what are we doing in the painting business? Like what's working? It's a very unique painting business in the sense that literally every single sale in this business, aside from one when we just started it, have all been virtual. We've sold it completely virtual. Our sales guy lives 2 hours away in a different city. Um, Most of our team is actually virtual, aside from the production team and me right now. We're entire virtually. I mean, Corinne, you live in Kansas, like literally in
Yeah.
Kansas,
Yeah.
and the painting business is based out of Cleveland, Ohio. And it's hilarious. Our customers just like think she's local, thinks nothing of it, right? It's only a problem if you make it one. And our appointment setter slash I call like an admin, but really she just handles appointment setting, is actually based in Mexico, outside of Puebla, and yeah, so it's a very unique painting business, um, and the goal is to document a lot of that. To document a lot of that here. So you'll have a lot of solo episodes like this, and you'll also have a lot of episodes that you have some guests. We're definitely going to bring on some guests, but I will say, and maybe I get in trouble for saying this, but I'm gonna be selective with the guests that come on. I'll be totally frank. Like, Corinne, I've said this to you before. Like, since we started the painting business and like really got into it, once we got past some of those early hurdles and humps, like I'm a lot less impressed with a lot of people in the industry that I see. Um, it's just like I'm just like they're not as good at said skill set or whatever as I think a lot of the industry cracks people out to be. That's not to knock people. That's not to put anybody down. But I'm gonna be very selective with the guests I bring on. Like if I'm bringing on somebody and we're gonna be discussing something, it's because I know they can bring value to the audience. Like I said, it's gonna be fun. Like it's not all gonna be just like value the whole time. Like 10% of it's going to be, fun and conversational and whatever. That's how I'm going to have fun doing it. So that's how this thing's going to keep going and not just be like 2 episodes and then stop. But I am going to be selective with who comes on. It's not just going to be anybody and everybody. My goal honestly is not just to bring people on that will bring clicks and get more views and whatever, but bring people on that'll be fun people for me to talk to selfishly. Like if I'm not going to enjoy the conversation, I'm probably not going to bring them on straight up. And also people that'll provide actual really good value and that like know what they're talking about, because now, like I said, as we've done this further, I'm a lot less impressed and I'm like, dude, like you don't really know what you're talking about sometimes. So, and granted, that's just one man's opinion, take that as you will, but that's the intentions. That's sort of what you can expect from here. So lots of value, lots of learning, and a little bit of fun too. A little bit of fun, a little bit of insight into our lives too, and what we're doing. Un poco fun. That's a little in Spanish.
Here
Yeah.
we go.
Here we go. So you guys will learn a little bit about me too. Yo hablo un poco español. Um, I love me a little Spanish. But anyways, this painting business of ours. How about
Yes.
it? Yeah. We started this painting business back in April, like I said, and Corinne, it's come a long way. It's
It
come a
has.
long way. So it's interesting just the timing of recording this because I mean literally yesterday, Corinne, I think you and I both felt it as we were wrapping up the workday. It was almost this like euphoria feeling. Maybe that's the wrong word. I don't know. But this feeling of just like, oh my God, like we're here, like we've done it. Like it was just, I think everybody was kind of feeling the magic in the air. We wrapped up a really big project, like a $23,000 interior, the biggest project we've done yet, and came out at like 49% GP, even after a bunch of things went wrong. And we didn't account for some oil trim and other things that, certainly hurt the profitability of the job. And it still turned out really, really good. The customers just loved us. The team is gelling. We've had a couple new painters start recently, and just the culture on the production side is just awesome right now. And I think we just all felt that. Our project manager, Charlie, who's transitioning in now and is training, he's been kicking butt. Like we're towards that tail end of training, and it's just all these pieces coming together all at the same time. And it's really, really exciting. And that was literally just yesterday. So it's very interesting, the timing of it. But let's take you back to the beginning when we started this thing. So we started this thing, like I said, like the last weekend in March. It was like March 27th or something. Um, we launched our ads. So we were planning this for a while. We had this was an idea I had like a year before we even launched this thing. I was out selling with Tanner in Florida for his painting company, and as I was doing some estimates with him, and I even did an estimate myself for him, and I was like, dude, like you could 100% do this virtually, because most of my sales career has been virtual. Right. So I was like, dude, you could 100% do this virtually. And then as I went and visited more people and stuff, because I was just trying to learn to better the marketing company, right? To be able to better serve our clients and everything. I went out and visited Jason Phillips, and I went out and saw other people. And I was like, dude, you could do this really well and do that. And I could do this a little differently. And I saw such a way that you could build a really unique painting company that serves everybody, right? That brings in more profit, that in big portions is run remotely, that gives opportunity for, overseas team members, which I'm super passionate about. We have a bunch of overseas team members on our marketing company, that serves its clients better, right? Just like that creates more opportunities for the actual painters and production and stuff. Just like I just saw a totally different way of potentially doing it. And obviously though, the timing of it had to be right. Um, because we've had this other marketing business that like we've been running the last few years. So you can't just like pop up another business. I was very aware of like shiny object syndrome and trying not to do too many things at once. Um,
Would
and
you say that's where the idea was born? Not to interrupt, but to interrupt a little bit. Like
yeah, no,
that's where
that's what
the
you're supposed to
idea
do. Yeah. Yeah.
that's where the idea was birthed on this,
From a
ride
shiny
along
object
that's
syndrome.
no,
Um,
like, hey, I think there's an opportunity here to do something remotely, like,
mm,
when you were on that ride along or
yeah,
co-selling there.
probably. I think,
Was that the first spark of this idea that's kind of come to be?
probably. Yeah, I'd say actually the first spark of it, I've told the story before, but it was really funny. So obviously, I'm a big fan of Hermosi, and Hermosi's told this story on podcasts where he was talking to a guy who ran a marketing agency for real estate agents, and the guy was struggling to get his clients results, right? And he was like, "Dude, I don't understand. Like, they say the leads aren't good, but like whatever." And he was like, "Well, dude, have you ever sold a house before?" And he's like, "No, no, I've never been a real estate agent or whatever." He's like, "Dude, it takes like a couple weeks to go get your license. Like, go get your real estate license, go sell some of these leads, and you'll know for sure. Like, do the clients suck or do you suck? Like, you'll know at that point when you go try to sell some of these leads." So he did. He took his advice. And then ironically, this guy actually never looked back, and he's an extremely successful real estate agent now. And funny enough, actually, the crazy full circle part of the story is at a certain point, I was looking for an apartment in Miami, and I thought I was going to get an apartment there because it's kind of in between Medellin and Cleveland. And I put a post on my social media, just said, "Hey, who knows, the best agent in Miami?" And like several people recommended this guy. And turns out the guy that was my agent there, that I've made a connection with, and now I consider him a good bit of a friend, was the guy in that podcast that Hermosi was referencing.
Dude,
So it was
that's
a really
wild. What a
weird,
small world.
right? Full
Yeah.
circle moment. So and it makes sense, right? Because he was a marketing agency owner. So when I posted, like all my marketing friends were like, "Oh, go talk to Peter," So it it made sense. But yeah, crazy. So originally I first had that idea there because I was like, dude, that's such a great point. Like I know I would be a better marketer and a better coach if I ran my own painting business. Like I would just have so much more perspective on certain things. But I was like, dude, I don't want to run a painting business. Like that doesn't sound fun. Um, and then when I went and did that right along with Tanner, probably, several months later, and I had the idea of like, dude, I was like, you could definitely sell this virtual. Like, there's no doubt in my mind. Then I was like, dude, maybe I would. Because a big thing for me, like when I first got into business in the first place, when I was in college, it was like, it originally started, I was like, I just want to be able to make 3 grand a month from anywhere in the world. So I can go travel and that's where like it all started, right? Um, my naive college wrestler self. But uh yeah, I was like, so the location, being location independent was really, really big for me. I want to be able to travel. I want to be able to adventure. I want to be able to see the world. Um, and that's been a really hard part about the painting company so far, but we can circle back to that. Um, so yeah, then when I was like, you could sell this virtually, then the idea started going of like, should we try to sell this virtually for clients of ours? Should we just open up our own business, et cetera? And like, we played with the idea a bunch of different ways and even ran it by a couple clients at certain points, but the way it just made the most sense, it was so difficult, right? Because it's like, oh well, let's partner with this client, let's sell some stuff virtually. But then it was like, well, his pricing wasn't high enough where it was going to make sense. And, then I wanted to add this unique selling point into his sales process so I could actually like sell this stuff at a high dollar amount, but then they weren't cool with that because of how they thought it represented the brand. And it created so much confusion to a point where we were just like, dude, like the easiest way to do this, at least at the time we thought, and we've certainly had our bumps in the road. So maybe in hindsight it wasn't, but at the time we were like, dude, it'll be easiest. Like, let's just do this ourselves. We'll pop up a location. We'll subcontract out the work. That'll be the plan. So then, we obviously took a lot of time and planned that and everything. But anyways, long about way of answering your question, Corinne. Not totally where the idea started. It was like an idea that I kind of wrote off. But then, yeah, hanging out with Tanner in Florida and actually going and selling some estimates, that's where like I started taking the idea a little bit more seriously when I was like, parts of this could be remote and I wouldn't be like stuck somewhere. So,
Gotcha.
yeah. Yeah, the more you know.
Fun facts.
Fun facts. Fun facts. But yeah, from there, it was planned out. So actually, almost a year ago, like end of February, we hired a gal that is our appointment setter. So we hired ahead of time, right? And I think sometimes people don't understand this when they look at our painting business. Like it's come from a very different spot, where like we had capital, like we had money to put into this, and it's a much different spot, right? Where it's like when I started the marketing business and how most people start their business is like they have a skill set, they have a lot of time and no money and they're broke, right? And that's how I started the marketing business. I had a skill set from years of advertising. I was living in my brother's spare bedroom. I had no clients or anything. I had all the time in the world and I had no money. Um, with the painting business, it's different where I don't have the skill set of painting, right? Contrary to the name Eric the Painter, I'm not actually a painter. I mean, I can do a little something. I can do a little painting, but nothing, nothing crazy.
Cut a line or two
Yeah, I can
of
cut a line or
paint.
two. I'm gonna tape off that trim though. You best believe I'm gonna tape off that trim. No shame about it. I'm at apprentice level in our company in terms of my paint skill set, and everybody knows it. There's no shame. Um, where was I going? What was I talking about?
You're like, I'm actually not a painter.
No, before that, where were we at in the story? Oh,
So
skill sets. So I started the
you're
painting business
welcome.
though is yes, thank you. It was much different, right? I started the painting business from a place of like I don't have the skill set of being a painter, so I'm going to need to hire those people. And I have some time. Like the marketing company didn't fully need me. I could easily step away for several hours to go build this, but I didn't have just like 100 hours a week open, just nothing on my calendar. And I also had capital I could use. And I had like skill sets I had built over the last 3.5 years at that time running this business and scaling it up and having 10, 15 team members. And like I had skill sets I developed. So totally different spot starting the painting business. So I say all that to say we hired an appointment setter about like a little over a month before we even launched the business. Um, and that was kind of done for two reasons. One, we were actually interviewing for a role in the marketing company, and we came across this gal who I was like, she's awesome. She wouldn't be the right fit for this role we're hiring, but she's awesome and she'd be a great fit for this appointment setter position in the painting business. Um, so I just, we got another call with her and I was like, hey, like, I know we are interviewing for this role, but this is actually what we're planning on doing. We think you'd be awesome for this. You're an amazing culture fit. Like, is that anything you'd be interested in? And she said, yeah. And we brought her on the team and we knew it was early, right? We brought her on the team about a month early and she was literally just like training for a month, just like practicing, right? Doing kind of things behind the scenes, helping out where she could. Um, because then what we did is we went to the painting contractor expo, the PCA expo. And we launched the plan was to launch the painting company after that, which we did shortly after that, right? A couple weeks after that, because we knew that event was crazy. We had a lot of planning, all sorts of stuff leading up to it. Like we weren't going to try to launch that business a week before, this big expo that we had all the stuff planned for, team members flying in, presentations, speaking, all this. It was going to be crazy. So that was what we did. Yeah. So that was how it all started. And then, like I said, like last week in March, our ads went live. We had all the branding done, the website done, et cetera. The ads went live. and we kicked it off. We kicked it off at the time. I was actually still in Playa del Carmen, Mexico. Hadn't even flown back to Cleveland yet. So I was like calling my Sherwin rep. This is a funny moment. I was calling my Sherwin rep, and I was like, "Yeah, I need to open up an account." And he's like, "All right, yeah." He's like, "You want to?" It wasn't a rep at a time, right? I called a Sherwin store. I was like, "Hey, I need to open up an account, starting this painting business, whatever." They get me connected with my rep, and he's like, "Yeah, you want to meet for coffee or something? We can get everything set up and whatever." I was like, "So I'm in Mexico right now." He's like, "What?" He's like, "Yeah, no, I can't meet for coffee for like at least a couple weeks, man." And obviously gave him the rundown, everything we were doing. But it's funny, just like looking back on it in hindsight, especially the first few months where we got our ass kicked. But when I was starting the painting business in Korea, I don't know if you remember this, the intention was like I wasn't really planning on stopping back in Cleveland. I was so naive. I was like, we'll sell these virtually. We'll just subcontract out the work. I'll run some ads, find some subcontractors. We'll be like, hey, Paul, go do this work or whatever. It'll be easy. Just I actually I was in Playa del Carmen, Mexico, and I had a trip planned to Mexico City. Already planned, flights booked, Airbnbs booked, and everything. I was gonna be there for like a month and a half. And again, Tanner, I was talking with Tanner, and he was like, dude, he's like, go back there at least for the first few months. He's like, be able to meet the subcontractors in person. He goes, if something goes wrong, he's like, dude, I know you as a human. If something goes wrong and a customer's upset, you're gonna fly back and fix it. He's like, that's just who you are as a human. You're gonna fly back anyways. Something's gonna go wrong. Let me tell you, it's gonna be a brand new business. Something's probably gonna go wrong in the first couple months. So I was like, dude, you're right. Yeah, you got something, Corinne?
Oh, I was just chuckling because this was actually before I came on to the painting side. I was still in the marketing side,
Yeah,
so
you were.
I
You were more on
wasn't
the
privy
marketing side.
to all of the beginning hiccups
You
at
saw a
this
lot of the
point.
beginning hiccups, just
Oh,
the really, really beginning hiccups.
yeah.
Yeah, that's true. At the time, you were more on the marketing side still. Um, but yeah, Tanner was like, dude, you go back for at least the first few months. Make sure it's all set up, whatever. So that was the intention. I was like, cool, it sucks. Cancel the trip, lost some money on the Airbnbs and stuff and whatever. And I rerouted to Cleveland. And that was the intention. I was like, dude, I'll be here for a couple months, find some subs, meet those connections, shake hands, kiss babies, whatever. And yeah, I'll hire a project manager in a couple months. Dude, I'll be out in like 3 months. I was like, dude, if I'm really good, like if I crush it, I can do it in a month. Be in and out. Was I wrong? Oh my gosh. But
Because you're sitting there in your apartment in
we're still
Cleveland
here, baby. We're still in Cleveland.
right
We
now.
are still here. Yep, we are here in Cleveland. 10 months later. Um, but that was the plan. Yeah, I was like, dude, I'll pop over for 3 months, do this thing. I'll get back to traveling. I'll run the company remote, bada bing, bada boom. And so I flew back to Cleveland, and what ensued after that was not what was planned, right? We got our butt kicked for dude, like the first 4 or 5 months, mostly on the production side with subcontractors, right? And we just got eaten alive by subcontractors. Naturally, the marketing, the sales part went pretty easy, right? I don't mean to sound boastful, but I always tell people, like, especially at the beginning when people were like, dude, have you run into any problems with the virtual sales? I'm like, not really. Like, not really. Like that part, thankfully, has actually gone like exactly how I anticipated it to. I mean, little minimal things here and there, but for the most part, like I closed the first ever estimate I took virtually over the phone. It's like it really did just kind of. I mean, there's parts of like fine tuning the process, yes, but like that all went kind of exactly as planned, which was really cool. But
Well, that would make sense because, being your strength is marketing and sales, that part would just naturally be something that was less of a hiccup to figure out. But I guess what do you mean when you said like I got eaten alive by subs? Like
yeah,
in a 30-second summary, I guess, not to derail
oof.
your entire
No, no,
topic of
you're
conversation because that's probably a whole
no,
nother
that's
episode.
exactly where I
But
was going.
what
That's exactly where I was going. And yeah, you're 100% right. Like it makes sense that like the marketing, the sales, the admin has all been pretty smooth sailing the whole time and kind of went exactly as planned because again, that's our strength. That's what we've already been doing for the last 4 years. Um, but yeah, the first few months we just got eaten alive by subcontractors. We interviewed several. We interviewed a bunch, probably hundreds or something. Um, but interview the first few. The first job actually went perfectly well. It was simple as like 2 rooms, walls only. A couple bedrooms, whatever. And the second job that subcontractor was on, oh my, they left the place a wreck. They scratched up the floors, moving furniture. I mean, anything and everything you can imagine. And then it just ensued, right? And there was a point, Corinne, I don't know if you remember this, because then you came over and helped with the recruiting and stuff. There was a point where I felt like the cycle we were doing in those first like 4 or 5 months was work all week, Saturday, work all week, have a subcontractor do something horrible, right? Not show up on time, break something on the customer's property, curse and scream or this, that, some sort of like good enough, big enough issue on the first or second project they did for you, right? So fire that essentially, right? Have them finish out that project, not work with them again, and then that Saturday, spend all day at Panera interviewing, meeting with 6 to 8 subcontractors to maybe find one or two you'd be willing to test out, to test them out within the next 1 or 2 weeks, to then repeat the cycle. And it just felt like this cycle we could never end, and the workload was stacking up. Our sales guy was selling, I don't know, between like 20 and 50,000 a month, and only taking a couple appointments a day, right? Like, I mean, shout out to him. He's been a trooper through this whole process. He's been throttled as far as like his earning potential and everything. Cause I'm like, sorry, dude, I can only give you 2 appointments a day right now because we start selling more than that. We just can't keep up on the production side. But it
Can't
was just
fulfill on
really,
what's been sold, yeah.
yeah, yeah, and it was this really ugly cycle of just like, all right, we'll interview a bunch of subcontractors. We'll test that one out. Oh, massive problems here. You know, didn't show up, didn't do this, whatever, demanding more money halfway through. I mean, all sorts of stuff. Um, it was brutal. So at a certain point, again from Tanner, from talking with him, he's had a lot of influence. Uh, he was trying to convince me for a long time, and he didn't for a while. Then he was like, "Dude, just try out W-2s." And when we were talking, one day we were just texting a bunch about it, and I can't think what kind of got me was he was like, it wasn't actually on the production side, ironically, but what got me is he was like, "Dude, you get a much bigger impact. Like you get a much bigger impact." He's like, if you go look at all my reviews, they're all naming our painters and how awesome they were and how much they loved working with him and this and that and whatever. And I just had thought, and I was like, dude, like that makes sense. And like I think a skill set we developed over the last 4 years on the marketing side is building culture, developing people. I look at several team members that have been with the marketing company for 2, 3 years, and it's like, if you look back at who they were when we started, you like don't even recognize the person, right? Like we're really good at pouring into people and like helping them develop and become the best versions of themselves. And I was like, we used to do more of that with if we hired W-2. So we hired W-2 painters, and then it was just beautiful, all sunshine and rainbows from there. Story. Um, I'm completely
That's
kidding.
the
That is not what happened at all. We got our ass kicked
but to
again.
touch on that though, yeah. Because when I came on, it was around, like, the end of July, and that's when I started, interviewing the subs and things like that, and then at one point, you proposed that idea of like, well, what if we switch to W-2s? And so I started booking your calendar with both for interviews, subs and
Yeah,
W-2s. And then that's when you really noticed a difference in like the whole mindset of these people that were sitting across the table from you. You're like, wow,
100%.
there's such a difference with W-2s versus subs. Like, they just come at you differently. Or they present differently. They have different, I don't know, motivations
Yeah.
or different mindsets. And you're like, it's so much easier to talk to someone in a W-2 type of relationship. And I think that's where we kind of took the direction to maybe try, recruiting harder on the W-2 versus sub side, especially with the less than ideal experiences that had been had with subs.
Yeah.
And then we started the hiccups and all of that going W-2 route to eventually get where we were yesterday, to go back to what you were saying at the very beginning of like, wow, like everything's really starting to fire on all cylinders, on who we're interviewing, who we're actually bringing in, the people who we've brought in are starting to gel, and it really, at
Yes.
the end of the day yesterday felt, kind of like a football team when everybody in all the different like departments
Yeah.
start to gel, your special
Yeah.
teams is on point, your defense, your offense, like everything, and you're winning games and you're winning them better, you know what I mean? And
Well, to your
just
point, yeah,
kind of
you're
like
winning.
that virtual, I'm here in Kansas, but like that, and we all communicate on Slack, like that virtual like locker room feeling of like team of like,
Mhm.
we're doing it, like woo, today this was great, like we won a really big first big game together. So that
100%.
was a really cool moment.
Yeah,
And
it's
you
like
could
that
feel it with
feeling of like,
everybody, like, "This is great.
yeah, you could feel the magic in the air,
Finally."
right? It was like we made the playoffs or, whatever. Um, but yeah, to your point, definitely through the interviewing, we noticed just like a difference in mindset, how they approach things. And W-2s brought their own issues. We continue to get our ass kicked on W-2s for several months then. I mean, from July till probably really like November, I would say, like
Yeah.
beginning of November. I'm trying to remember when Charlie came on, but yeah, I mean, really, we still got our butt kicked, and it was just, we went through the whole like we'll hire green painters, and I was the painter coach, right? Which again, in hindsight, like how naive that I was going to be the person training them, and like I'm confident I can train somebody on painting trim and painting ceilings and stuff, but I can't train on that more technical stuff, those more advanced stuff. I can't give them those nuanced tips and tricks of like the unique situations in this scenario and that scenario because I just don't have that experience. I can do that with running Facebook ads, right? I can do that with sales. So I've been doing those for years. I've got hundreds and thousands of reps, right? But I don't have that with painting. I've got, just barely enough I could teach somebody on our SOP to paint walls. Um, but we were bringing in a lot of green people or a lot of people that, had some painting experience, but they really didn't. And, they weren't the right culture fits. And we thought they were, right? But they didn't end up being the right culture fits. And it was brutal. Um, I will say though, it was still less brutal than the subcontractors. Like we still had a lot of happy customers during that part. Like with the subcontractors, when we were doing that, when it was like only subs, it felt like on nearly every single job. And I actually ran the math at one point, and it was like 82% of projects we had completed. There was some sort of something. I was sending them a gift card after. I literally a phrase I almost like had scripted out at that point was like, "Hey, look, I'm really sorry. I know some things have been less than perfect on the project. So what we're gonna go ahead and do is blank." And like take a few $100 off or do this or send them a gift card or whatever. It's like it almost just became a routine part of my script and my process as a project manager. And like that's not a fun spot to be in. And even with our first, several rounds of W-2s, it wasn't that, right? We did have a lot of happy customers and but it was still very, very difficult. The culture wasn't great. The communication wasn't great. It was tough. And come I want to say it was November, Corinne, that we brought on Charlie,
It sounds
I
about right.
think. Sounds about right, yeah. About November, we interviewed a fellow by the name of Charlie and brought him onto the team. Um, and ironically, about that same time, we also changed our interview process slightly. And I think I think that alone has like totally transformed the type of people we've been able to bring in. And ironically, Charlie was like right before we transformed that interview process. But we brought on Charlie and a guy that has 10, 12 years of experience and and it was a phenomenal culture fit, perfect culture fit. And what ensued then over the next, several weeks, now several months, right? We're recording this February 3rd. That was, probably beginning mid-November ish, is as he kind of saw and we worked together more and he heard my vision for everything, it was like he was just 100% in. Like he sees the vision, he sees where I have a lot of strengths where he doesn't, right? I have strengths on the marketing and sales and business side, and he has a lot of strengths on the production side that I don't. And this is probably a whole nother episode, but as we really got to know each other more, it's like, dude, like he is like the perfect person in terms of his skill sets, in terms of his character traits, in terms of his culture, to really move into a project management role and lead this thing. He's got a lot of skill sets in terms of his leadership and people skills and everything outside of just being a good painter, being able to texture match a ceiling or whatever, right? So obviously we worked together for a little while longer, and then kind of what ensued in the new year was starting to move him into that project management role and everything. And long story short, then right after we brought Charlie on too, we only had two painters at that point, right? Because one quit the day Charlie started. We had two painters. Charlie started, one quit the same day, so we had one other. At that point too, we also readjusted our comp plan and our bonus structure. It was like it all kind of came together at the same time. We changed our compensation plan and our bonus structure, and created more tiers, right? So apprentice, painter, job site manager, and those have different hourly rates and a bonus structure associated with that. And at the same time, switched our recruiting process and added in like a big chunk to our second interview process, where some of these more experienced painters were just like drooling. They were just like, oh my gosh, like this is amazing. um and all those things kind of came together. So then we had Charlie, and him and I are getting to know each other pretty well, working together well, and then we start bringing in like experienced painters, or people even with some painting experience, but that are amazing culture fits. And we're just like slowly assembling this team, and that's gotten us where we are now with Charlie and three other painters, two more starting on Monday, another two starting later in the month, and just a team of like talented people. So much so that we had our team retreat on the marketing side in the like first or second weekend in January. The first 10 days of the first 10 days of the new year, I was not in Cleveland for like 8 of those 10 days or 9 of those 10 days or something. Like it was crazy, right? Because I had a marketing conference in Atlanta I went to as well. I was in Cartagena, Colombia for New Year's, right? So I was able to not be there, and the team was able to self-manage. And we did some strategic things. We had like a big project we purposely put them on and everything, but it really flowed smoothly. And again, now fast forward even another few weeks, a month later, again, we're to that point where now it's like it's all coming together. So long story short, that's been the journey from April to now to February.
It's been a wild one.
Yeah.
Lots of learning moments, but that was a cool, as you've gone through that story, I should just go through and pick some out, because there's really a lot of heavy milestones that were made in that time span. And that one you just talked about, where, hey, I was able to go do the team retreat, in a totally different country, gone for basically a week between that and the other conference you had to go to, versus whatever month it was, October, September, where you had to leave out of town and you didn't have the right team in place. And we had to shut production down
Mhm.
totally for two
Yeah.
days because
Yeah.
you're like, hey, I
Literally, we
just
did
don't
that.
feel comfortable like
We
running
had we had
jobs
a
without
different
me.
we had a different project manager at the time who didn't have painting experience and was not a good fit culture wise, and so many reasons, so many horror stories. We had a project manager who knew nothing about painting. We had three painters who really knew nothing about painting either. And then Eric, who knows very little about painting, trying to like lead this production team. And yeah, I forget what it was. I think was it maybe Jason Phillips Contractor Freedom Conference or something. I
I
had
think
something.
that's where it was. Yeah.
It was either that or Barstow's event out in Denver, but it was one of the two. I think it has to have been Jason's because his came first. But I was speaking at that event, and yeah, it was literally like a game time decision. Like we thought they were going to be able to manage beforehand, and then like we had it all planned. We had like a easy projects for them. Like we thought they were going to be able to manage for like 2 or 3 days without me, and then like I was flying out like Tuesday night or something, and Monday our project manager had like some crazy breakup with his girlfriend and was just like a train wreck, like could not hold it together. And like somebody else then didn't show up that day, and a customer this, and like like we thought we were maybe going to be able to piece it together and still because the problem is like if you're off for those 3 days, like I've guaranteed these people 40 hours a week. so I'm gonna pay them. It's just that's just money out of your pocket, right? If painters aren't painting but they're getting paid, we are losing money. And this is a bootstrapped company, right? Like you're right at the beginning of stage. It's not like we got tons of cash sitting in the bank. I mean, we have cash from the marketing side to pull into it, but again, like you want the company to be self sufficient, and so it was like game time decision. We were like, we're cutting it. Like we're not doing this because it's just gonna be a train wreck. So we shut production down. Our office team, our sales team still worked those couple days while I was down in Dallas. And it was in hindsight, it was such a good decision because it would have been it would have been a train wreck. It would have been incredibly stressful and difficult and all that. But yeah.
Yeah. And that's where it was too. It's like, well, yeah, we're going to lose money paying these people. They're contracted like 40 hours a week, but in the long run, between like a job going crazy while you're not there or something going wrong and then we end up having to like, I don't know, overcompensate that client, like we could actually be
Yeah.
saving money paying our crew not to work,
Mhm.
which is as crazy as that was. But as we were in that debating stage, it's just kind of like the universe speaking to you with those things that went down right before you left, where it was like,
Yeah.
okay, it's showing us this is probably not a good decision to keep running at this point without you
Yeah.
there. So,
Well, and even then, when I went to the event in Denver, that was ironically the timing of this, like, it was crazy too. When I went to Barstow's event in Denver, same thing. It was like a Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, or something like that. And Charlie, he started like that Monday, and then like Wednesday, I was out of town or something. And Corinne, you actually flew in
I
because like we
did.
didn't know anything. I mean, we knew this Charlie guy had a good amount of painting experience, seemed like a great fit, but like to some extent, you really never, you don't totally know who you're getting until they work those first couple weeks with you. And yeah, you flew in to like to drive the van to,
Mostly drive the
be
work
there.
van. Yeah.
Yeah, because that was the other thing. At one point, we had a project manager that didn't know painting. We had 3 painters that didn't know how to paint, and literally none of them had, like, a good enough driving record or anything to drive the
Yeah.
van. It was
The
oh my
insurance wouldn't,
god.
cover them, and
Yeah.
if they would, it was gonna be astronomically high, so
Yeah, we
you've
had
got
one
Eric going out of
person.
town and nobody to drive the work
Oh
van.
my god.
So he's
It's
like,
crazy.
"Can
We
you
had, like,
fly
one
in and
one person that could
drive?"
drive a work van, and, like, their insurance per month was, like, more than our general liability and my insurance on the van. It was insane. So yeah, she flew in and managed that. So it's like we pieced it together to produce revenue. But like that was also, I mean, poor Charlie, right? He came in the first week and he's like, "What the heck is this?" I know at one point he literally told me, he's like, "Dude, this isn't a painting company." He's like, "Nobody here knows how to paint. Like this is not like you guys are good at the other stuff, but this isn't a painting company." And then slowly but surely we really figured it all out. But yeah, it's a wild journey.
It was. So, I'm sure you were elated to have the feeling when when January rolled around, we were like, "I can leave for 7 days and we're gonna be productive and profitable," and, just having
Yeah.
that trusted team in place, versus where you were just a few months prior to that.
Yeah. Well, and it really wasn't even, like, stressful either. Like, we did strategically time it where we did, like, a massive project while I was gonna be out for a while, so it wasn't like they were running around because Charlie hadn't really he wasn't really through training or anything yet either. So we purposely, like, put a big project there so he wasn't having to do walkthroughs and all this other stuff he hadn't been trained on yet. And yeah, it was really, really pretty simple and easy. No real stress, and I think Corinne, I was telling you just the other day, it's like it is amazing because I've seen it happen now in the marketing company and the paint company, how like one or two like just killer A players, just savages at what they do that are aligned with the culture, that are bought into the vision, that love the freaking company, they can totally transform. Just one or two of them can totally transform a business.
Yeah.
Because
Not
what's
only
happened
that
after that. Yeah, go ahead.
yeah, not only that, but having the right people, but also just tweaking a couple elements in, like, what they do on the day to day and like, dynamics in the role. So
Mhm.
just even sometimes like shifting just a little bit of responsibility one direction or another can really change things as well.
Yeah. What do you mean? Is there any, like, thing specific that comes to mind?
Yeah, like on the marketing side, so, having um, the coach and then
The project managers and the coaches when we switched
right,
that. Yeah. Yep,
right.
yep. Yeah,
So, like,
100%
workflow changes or,
getting the right people in the right seat with the right responsibilities, 1,000%. And that was the thing with Charlie too, where, I got working with him for a couple weeks. I'm like, dude, you are too talented to stay a painter. Like, you've got some tech skills, you've got people skills. Like, we need to work on some of this stuff. Like, it's not like he's not perfect, right? But like, he leads from a place of like love and care. He's not like the typical paint boss that's just screaming down people's throats and everything. Like, he leads from a place of like wanting to really help, and like, dude, you have too much talent and potential here to stay as a painter. Um, but yeah, it's been cool just seeing how, again, in both companies, one or two killers can transform it. Because then what happens too, when you get those one or two just people that are just absolute savages at what they do, then when the new people come in, like, that's the standard. Like, that is the standard, and the standard and the culture and everything shifts, and it's like that's what we're doing. But if everybody's a B player, and then you bring a B player in, they're gonna be a freaking B or a C player. But if everybody's a freaking A plus and you bring in somebody that's really at a B, they start, if they're good and they're the right culture fit and everything, they rise to that very quickly. Um, and I've seen that happen in both companies now, and it's really cool.
True.
Yeah. Not to make this a lesson on people and hiring and all that. But anyways, that's the timeline. That's where we're currently at. Yeah. I think that's all I got for this episode. You got anything else to add in, Corinne?
Not currently. Nope.
All right.
But lots of
Well, that's
ideas
just,
for upcoming topics for sure.
yeah. Oh yeah. We'll
Lots of
we'll have
areas to dig
so
into
much
all of
stuff.
that stuff on the timeline. Lots of
Yeah,
good
I'm sure.
stories.
I was gonna say, I'm sure if you've listened and you've stuck around this far, one, thank you. But I'm sure you've heard some things where you're like, oh my gosh, like, I need to dig into that story and this story. And we've got so many stories to share. So that is it for this episode. Hopefully you enjoyed. If you did, go ahead and comment. Tell me your favorite part. Tell me topics you want to hear. Tell me what you want to see from this, and we'll do our best to deliver on that. Do whatever you're supposed to do to subscribe to the episodes or whatever. I don't know. Or if you don't, if you're like, this episode sucked, see you later. Don't ever come back. That's fine too. It don't matter. But hopefully you enjoyed, and we'll see you on the next one.